And everyone's going to be familiar with this topic because we have the same issue here in Lake County that they're working on in Mendocino County. And if you did not know, I think you would find this interesting. Evelyn, why don't you go ahead and let the public know who you are a little bit and what is your mission today?
Well, thank you, John. I really appreciate you having Jatera and I. And it was amazing how we were able to meet in Mendocino. So I am a descendant of the Muisca people from Colombia, and I've been doing indigenous work all my life for 20 years. I co-founded the International Funders for Indigenous Peoples, which is a membership of 50 foundations that supports indigenous peoples globally. And I am the founder and CEO of the Indigenous Resilience Consultant. So I work with indigenous tribes, nationally, locally, and globally. So that's a little bit about me. I moved to Fort Bragg 4 years ago, and when I was doing research, I moved from Half Moon Bay. And when I was doing research on Fort Bragg, I came across the dialogue of changing the name, and I knew I was going to get involved. So just 5 months ago, I was asked by Change Our Name to join the board, which I did, and so we've been really working hard on our strategy. But before I continue on that, I just wanted to thank you for having Jatera, because she's so passionate and she does so much with so little funding, and she's just doing such amazing work. I'm also on the board of lovewildhorses.org.
Oh, very good.
So both of these organizations, like she was saying, it's just intertwined because it's all about justice and it's all about indigenous peoples, and the horses are going through or are still going through a genocide.
Right.
And people don't know about this. Just like people don't know that Fort Bragg, the fort, was built on top of a Mendocino. It was called a Mendocino Indian reservation. It was a reservation for 10 years, and what it did was it took all these different tribes, like maybe around 6 to 8 different tribes, and they brought around 8,000 people to the reservation that went from Noyo all the way to 10 Mile. And it's just the stories are so abusive, and the trauma that occurred there, where they would steal the children for $5, and they would rape the women whenever they wanted to. They would put flour in the they would put sawdust in the flour, and they would steal the flour for money. So, they basically starved the people and used them as slaves for 10 years. And then after 10 years, they had a trail of tears where they brought them up to Round Point Valley. So that's why the tribes are over the hill in Willits and in that area, Covelo, versus on the coast, because they were forced out.
Right. And so your effort is very similar to our effort here in Kelseyville, that the name of the town of Fort Bragg, like the name of the town of Kelseyville, is offensive.
Yes.
Right? It's highly offensive.
Highly offensive. For 2 reasons. Like I said, the fort was built on it was an indigenous concentration camp.
Right.
And 50% of the people were killed in that year, in those years of 10 years of, and a lot of people don't know that. And
we have a similar story here in Lake County, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there were settlers that came, and then there was a massacre of the native people out here called the Bloody Island Massacre. This is in 1850, and so that event, this man and another guy, their last name was Kelsey. They moved here. They took control of that situation, and they perpetrated all these crimes on the native people here. And then we named the town after them, Kelseyville. And so the goal here is to change the name from Kelseyville to Canocti, which is the name of the mountain here that is ancient. Are there particular name choices if you're talking about changing Fort Bragg? What are some of the ideas that you would change the name to?
So Noyo is a big one. I've talked to several tribal people, and they really like that. Noyo means fish, and Noyo Bida means fishing place. And Noyo, from what we understand, has been a Pomo name for the creek here in Fort Bragg for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's not about changing it. It's about restoring the name.
Right.
It's only been Fort Bragg for 150 years.
Right.
And actually, when it was named Fort Bragg 150 back in 1862, Union Officer Colonel Lippett in Humboldt County asked his superiors to please change the name. He said, quote, "For it has too long borne the name of a traitor." So Bragg, what people don't understand was he was an American traitor. He was a Confederate. There are books written on him how he was a drunk, and he was one of the worst Confederate generals in history, right? And then on top of all that, he owned 105 slaves. He's always had slaves,
right?
You know. But there's definitely a lot not to like about him.
Sure.
He also never stepped foot in California.
Wow.
So which is like most people are like, well, then why would he? You know, it was just recommended by a colleague. And they just kind of went with it because we were in the middle of Civil War,
right?
And they just didn't want to go through the paperwork. So now we're starting a movement here. This organization, Change Our Name for Bragg .org. We have a website and we have a Facebook following of thousands of people. We have 900 people on our mailing list. So we're starting a movement, and for us, it's different from Kellysville. What we have to do is we have to get Fort Bragg City Council members. There's a couple of different ways, but one is to get the Fort Bragg City Council members to put it on the ballot. Right now we have 3,800 people that live in the incorporated Fort Bragg area. So what we would need is a majority, around 1,700 people to vote for it. And a lot of people don't know the history. So, we have Fort Bragg forever signs everywhere, and because people don't understand. So what we're doing is we're doing these monthly meetings, and we're educating people on the history. We're bringing in different speakers every time. I was a speaker back in November, and I did a lot of research, and I realized, wow, this is incredible. If people knew, about the indigenous Mendocino Indian reservation and the horrors that took place there, and if they knew about Braxton Bragg, I think people will easily want to change that name.
Right. It's an interesting phenomenon that we notice here also. You would think that it would just be a no-brainer, right? That everyone would be on board with changing the name. But what we find here in Kelsey, or I call it Kville, is that, there is a lot of resistance to changing the name. And that resistance seems to come from basically longtime property owners in the area and certain businesses. Now, whether the businesses are financially motivated, for example, if your name is Kelseyville Lumber or something, you have to and they change the name of the town. You would have to change, you might have to change the name of your store, and then it becomes an expense. And so there's resistance, I think, from that direction. But then there's this other type of resistance, which is just seemingly basically racism, right? That certain groups in town think, or in the county, just they want it to stay the same because that's their heritage. They claim, this is our land, our heritage. My family's been here. I love when I hear this. My family's been here for 5 generations. Really, 5 generations? The Native people have been here for 22,000 or more years. And we stole their land when we came here. But you want to claim that it's yours, it's your heritage. And that to me is just unbelievable. And so there are signs, literally signs, save Kelseyville, things like this resistance, which is Really a sad fact. Do you have some of that there in Fort Bragg too, like that sort of political resistance?
Yes, I think for different people's different reasons that are against it, even after they learn the history. I think for some people it's just fear. This is what they identify. Fort Bragg is, has been in their family for generations, and they're just afraid of change. People don't like change.
That's right.
I think another one is some people are racist.
Right.
And racism is still real, and it's still here in California and everywhere.
Right.
So so people that feel that they're white supremacists and they feel that being white is right. Period.
Right.
And then you brought up the business aspect of it, because yes, people would have to change their letterhead. But
right.
We did some research and found that it wasn't actually a whole lot of money to do all that. But we also talked to state legislators. John, you still there?
Yes.
We talked to state legislators, and they said that if we were able to change our name, they would be happy to put up a fund and money to help in the businesses.
Nice.
And my work has been in philanthropy for 20 years, so I would also reach out to several foundations. There's 128,000 foundations in this country. 128,000 that give around $100 billion a year every year. So there's so much money, and 97% stays right here in the USA. Most people don't realize how much money is out there. With the whole, when George Floyd happened, there's in philanthropy, there has been a whole movement where everybody is asking foundations, hey, look at who you're funding. What part are indigenous, and what part are African Americans or people of color?
Right. And
they realized it was only maybe 1%, if that. So now they're going back and trying to support indigenous peoples. And I've been doing this work in indigenous philanthropy for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like it. Where foundations are now realizing, this is about healing and racial justice and righting the wrongs. I mean, that's what foundations should be doing, right?
And not just randomly donating your money just to donate the money. Find out where it's going and who it's supporting or not supporting.
Exactly.
And target those donations to the places that are environmentally and morally correct, or
right.
Yeah.
Right. And also supporting communities. Like you're absolutely right. It's in the past, a lot of the foundations would support their friends that run big not-for-profits, but they didn't actually do the work that is needed to realize how much of that is really going to communities. And there's a report that came out probably 5 years ago that said monies that was intended for indigenous community, the percentage that actually hit the indigenous communities was only 3%. So what we have seen historically is almost no money, very little money goes to indigenous peoples, indigenous communities. And this is horrific, especially after the trauma of the residential schools, the trauma of relocating people, the trauma of actually scalping women, children, men for $5, where our government put up money for this. It was our laws to approve it, because we just wanted to extinguish, Native Americans because we wanted their land. So, so with our organization, Change Our Name, what we're doing is we're doing many things, but one of them is these monthly meetings, and we welcome people in this call to come. We have the different places, the library and town hall, and you could check. We're on Facebook, Change Our Name, Fort Bragg. And then we also do an annual contest with the Fort Bragg High School, where we put up $2,000 for the number one winner, $1,000 for the second winner. And what this does is we're encouraging young people to learn about the history of where they live, because the schools are not teaching this.
Right.
And I also wanted to mention that Fort Bragg High School and Middle School are the only schools in California that are named after Confederate general. the only.
Wow.
All the other schools have been changed already.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That is not something that you want to be the last one on, the last one to
Yeah,
get out of, right? Well,
exactly.
Evelyn, I've really enjoyed your call and our talk, and it does bring us all together, and we can see that this this issue is not just isolated to our county or yours. It's a widespread thing, and that the wave of society is moving in a positive direction to make those changes, even though it takes a lot of energy and a lot of convincing. I want to thank you for the work that you do to make that possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say, Phil, who is our chair, is amazing, and we have some amazing board members too. So it's definitely a whole network of people, and we're building alliances with the tribes, and several of the tribes have signed on to support it. So we are creating a movement here in Fort Bragg, and we know it will change.
Very cool. We have 7 tribes here in Lake County, and we have actually tribe members that are Native Americans that are that do radio shows here on the same station. And so I would encourage you and your listeners to tune in to kpfz.org over there in Mendocino County, and you can live stream the shows. And there are 2 in particular that are really amazing hosts, programmers, both Native American men and women, and those shows really are eye-opening to the plight of and the struggle of our original peoples. So please share that too. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I do also want to say we are also supporting an Indigenous Cultural Center and definitely memorializing those victims that died. And we also support Land Back. So that's a whole other issue that we are supporting.
Very good. And maybe we'll have you back in the future when you have more news to share about the progress.
Thank you so much.
Changing the name, we can have you back.
Yes, change our name, FortBragg.com. Yeah.
Right. Change our name, FortBragg.com.
Yeah.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.